This is episode 17 of Out of the Boat, and I do hope you know that everything you do right now is going to be... Did you just take a selfie?
As a joke. To the
restart.
So that was literally... I was pulling my...
No,
thing.
I'm leaving that.
Bruh.
We out here. I'm going to throw up. Okay. All right. So this is episode 17, I think. Yes.
Spiderwebs.
Of Out of the Boat.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I know a lot of people talk about the ministry that God's given you has been in. I think I talked about this to you earlier today too, or yesterday, whatever. That your ministry is an overflow of your relationship. You know, we hear it a lot, but like, do we apply it? So I was like, because there's been times where I'm like, I know I gotta either speak something or a podcast is coming up and I'm like, Lord, what am I gonna say? But it's like when you're actually in a relationship day to day, you always have something to say. Yeah. So, you know, for once in my life, here we are. No, not once in my life, but I mean, like, honestly, it was pretty cool. Like this week, like I actually had something that I was reading today and yesterday, and I was like, you know what, honestly, that'd be pretty cool to share in the podcast tomorrow. In Exodus 14, this is where the Israelites were leaving Egypt and fleeing from Pharaoh. And in Exodus 14, verse... I think it's 12. Is not this the word that we did tell you in Egypt, saying, let us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we would die in the wilderness. And Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. I remember as I was reading this last night, I was like, that's kind of crazy that, you know, they're on one side of the field. They didn't want to be there. They were in bondage. They were in slavery, and they got delivered. Yeah. And they wanted to go back. I don't know what did. Okay,
weird circumstances.
It's funny that, you know, I say that, like, why would you want to go back? Like, you know, but the thing is, like, God, we do it all the time. Like, wow, these people are so stupid. Those darn Israelites, they don't know anything. And then here we are. We're doing the same thing, but in modern times. It's like, I'm free from addiction. And then I go right back. I want to do it again. It doesn't make any sense. But, you know, that's just a human thing that we do. And where was I going with this? It's like, once God has freed you, we read the story, it's like, okay, why would you want to go back? But a lot of people, I think, find comfort in either their addiction or their depression. I know for a long time, for me, I would like almost strangely find comfort in being depressed or like being, I don't know, sad. There was sometimes like I wasn't even sad, but to comfort myself, I would find a reason to cry. And I was like,
we've all been there.
So I understand, I guess, wanting to go back to bondage in a sense. But when you read this story from an outside perspective, it's like, why? And I guess it's how we have to kind of view ourselves too.
It's because they identify themselves as the bondage they were in. And just like in modern times, we identify ourselves with the depression we go through, anxiety. And it's like, if we don't have that, if we get delivered, who are we now? Before we were that person struggle with that. And now that we got delivered, it's like, who am I? So it goes back to an identity problem. Like, who am I? You know?
It's true. Wow. I didn't think about it like that. Yeah, it's especially when you've been in something for so long. I feel like, okay, if I've been depressed this many years, I could say honestly, all of middle school up until like, honestly, probably like a couple of years, maybe like 2 years ago, I was not like depressed, but I was sad a lot, all the time. I would cry quite often. And it's kind of hard to imagine your life not in that cycle when you've been in it for so long. So to say that, you know, like you're freed and delivered from something, it's like, what do I do with my life? What do I do in downtime? When do I cry? It's like, when do I have a pity party?
It's all gone from there.
No, yeah. But the only thing I can think of is, you know, just continue to pray forward, because I don't want to go back to bondage. You go the same cycle over and over again.
I feel like something that's overlooked. It's in Exodus chapter 17, verse 2. And it reads, "Therefore the people contended with Moses and said, 'Give us water that we may drink.' So Moses said to them, 'Why do you contend with me? Why do you tempt the Lord?'" Now the Hebrew word for contended is ne'evak, which means to strive against or to struggle in opposition. They just got delivered from over 430 years of slavery. God takes them through the wilderness. Compared to the slavery they were just in, this is a small little problem. And they start complaining with the man of God. Well, how are you going to complain? Let's say you struggle with severe depression, suicidal thoughts. God delivers you. A small little problem arises, let's say financial. A small bill comes up, and you start complaining to God.
That happens.
Well, God's like, what are you doing? Like, I just delivered you with the biggest thing, the biggest mountain in your life I just brought you through. And you're going to complain about something small. Where's the trust? Where's the faith that you have in me? And a lot of times people, they've been delivered from the biggest thing, drugs, alcohol, an abusive relationship. And the moment problems start to arise, they go back to their old roots. And God's like, well, I'm not going to bless you with a new thing until you can start being grateful for the old things I brought you out of.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking about like, you know, when God brought them out of Egypt and they come up to the water and they're sitting there. It's like, dang, all they see is an impossible problem in front of them. It's like God just delivered you from a pretty impossible situation, and now you're faced at what looks like another impossible situation. And instantly, yeah, it's like how we are. You begin to doubt. You're like, oh man, all right, throw the towel in and just forget everything.
It was more than doubt. It was complaining. That's what it really emphasized. Because doubt, everyone goes through doubt. Like in the Bible, in the Gospels, I forgot what story, but he went to Jesus and said, "Lord, I believe, help my unbelief." So it's okay to have unbelief as long as you take it to the Lord. The problem is when we start complaining, God, why this? We start having a pity party. And we've always heard that saying, victim mentality, you know? Like, stop being the victim, start being a victor, you know? Whenever you're faced with a situation, stop going through it like, oh, really, another one? Oh, all this? We're supposed to rejoice in our tribulation. So why are we always complaining all the time?
I don't know if this is like an accurate analogy. But imagine, you know, you're brought out of your problem and you're fleeing. Not fleeing, but like, you know, you're out of it. You're free. And that issue or that thing that you were dealing with or struggling with is now in a sense, essentially is running back after you, coming back to come get you. Like, no. You're not free, which is Pharaoh and his army, bringing his whole army of people after you to bring you back into bondage. No, you're not free. You're a slave. You're coming back to sin. That's how a lot of us, you know, when we're free, we look back and it's like, oh man, like, am I really delivered? Am I really free? And you're looking at this sea in front of you, which looks like an impossible situation. It's like, oh, how's God like going to bring me through this? Like, okay, now I'm trapped. But in reality, when God parts the sea and you walk through on dry ground, the thing that's coming back at you or coming after you is actually a trap, which you thought was an impossible situation. God's using that situation to almost, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, like get vengeance for you on, how's it called? On your behalf.
Right.
Isn't that crazy? Because that's where they died. That impossible situation, they went through it. But the Lord used that to swallow up their enemy. I think that's pretty cool. I feel like there's so much, not like imagery, but there's so many examples that you can pull from this story of Exodus and the Israelites.
And they witnessed miracle signs and wonders. They saw one of the biggest miracles in the Bible, God parting the Red Sea. But how did they get to that situation where they experienced that miracle and witnessed it firsthand? God put them through in Egypt. And Egypt is a type of the world. So a lot of times we always pray, God, let me see miracles, signs, and wonders. But a lot of times that means we have to go through our own Egypt to be positioned to see that miracle. Because we want to say, oh, God's my comforter, God's my healer, God's my provider. Well, then we're going to need comforting first. If we want to see God as a provider, we're going to need God to provide for us. we need God as a healer. That means he might bring sickness upon us. So we're going to be careful. Like, oh, God, I want to see you as a healer. God, you're my healer. Well, he's like, I haven't put you through anything yet. You haven't experienced me as a true as a healer. So if you want to see him as a healer, I might bring a sickness or disease upon your family or yourself. And I'm not trying to be like too cruel. Yeah, but it's like that a lot of times that's what the Bible shows us. And it's like we got to be careful what we pray, because prayer is more powerful than we think.
That's true. That's true. There's another thing that I pulled out of that I got from Exodus 14 was God instructed Moses to stretch out his hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. I think it's interesting how God will lead somebody to do something or instruct them to do something. Right. It wasn't just like, boom, it was like God orchestrating the show the whole time. It was God impressing on people and leading them in the spirit to do things. So I was kind of, I don't know how you say it, analogizing. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Correlating. I was trying to like correlate, okay, how does that like kind of relate to today or relate to my situation? And it's like God uses his people and through prayer to accomplish things that he has called us to do. And I don't know what would happen if he was like, Moses, stretch out your rod over the water. And Moses just sat there, I ain't doing that. You know, like, and it's kind of like, you know, like, that's not God. That's kind of like today. It's like, it's not God. It's like, is God really telling me to do that? You know? Right. So it's like, if we don't do what God tells us to do, will his will get accomplished? You know what I mean? Like it's his will that everybody gets saved, but if nobody's like reaching out and doing anything, like there are people dying around the world and going to hell for eternity. Yeah. It's crazy.
And Moses was being used, but the thing Moses didn't expect was all the problems that started rising. And I feel like a lot of people have a false analogy of God where it's like, if I start living for God, it's going to be smooth sails. I always hear God's a provider, God's all this, but you're still going to go through problems. The Bible says we must enter many tribulations to enter the kingdom of God. Following God, you're going to enter a lot of tribulations. It's not going to be all rainbows and sunshines following God.
Okay, I don't know if this is bad too. But when you were talking about that, like God's a provider and all this stuff, I feel like there's a lot of times I'll look at a lot of my friends that I've grown up with or whatever, and not a lot of them are in church anymore. Like the group, let's just say we start out with 100 people, whether in my church or my school and all this stuff. 100 of us were all living for God. If I were to say like that 100 today, I'd say probably 10 of them are living anywhere remotely for God. Oh, wow. So out of those people, I forgot where I was going with that. God's a provider. Okay. So what I'm saying is a lot of those friends that I have that don't even like live for God, or just friends that I have that never were living for God or anything, it's like God's a provider. Like they have everything you can think of. They're never short of anything. And sometimes I think to myself, Lord, I'm doing everything that you said. Can I please have like, I don't know, like a nice car or something? Like give me a little something here. And I forgot I was going with that too. Oh, God is a provider. Sometimes it's hard to like focus on that. And it's easy to complain like the Israelites, because I feel like I'm giving and giving and giving. And it's, all right, God, when are you gonna be that provider? I mean, like, then again, I might not be looking at it. I'm just complaining, actually. I may not be looking at it as I'm supposed to, because God has provided for me. I have a house. I have a good family. I have a car. I'm surrounded by awesome friends. Wow, look at me. I'm a darn Israelite. I'm over here complaining. He is a provider. Wow, what a revelation. I'm dead.
That's hilarious.
No, that really is. God, revelation right on the podcast here. That was some of the things that I pulled out of Exodus 14 when I was reading this. I was like, wow, okay, honestly, I could talk about this.
I feel like to backtrack, I feel like a lot of us are like Job's wife. Like we've all heard the story of Job, where Job was a righteous man. He barely sinned, pretty much. I'm just going to sum it up like that. God attacked his family, his household, pretty much his way of living. He took away all of it, all because the devil asked him to. The devil went up to God and said, oh, he's only worshiping you because he's blessed. Take away that blessing. Take away that covering. Let's see if he still worships you. God lets the devil attack him. The devil attacks him. Job still worships. The devil attacks again. In Job chapter 2, verse 9, it says, "Then his wife said to him, 'Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die.' Verse 10 reads, 'But he said to her, You speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips.'" Notice how it says, "In all this, Job did not sin with his lips." That means he verbally didn't come out against God and say, "God, I hate you, God, all of this." He didn't turn his back on God with his lips, his words. In his heart, he was probably feeling all of this. But he had a revelation of, God is still my provider. God is still my healer. I'm in this position. God gave me life.
That's
like,
honestly, sometimes I'll read the story of Job, and it's hard to think, if I was in that position and I lost literally everything.
Your kid's dying?
Yeah, no. Yeah, the kids I don't have. But, if I had kids, Billy and Bob are dead. But, my whole family dies and everything. And I lose everything. To go from wealth to nothing, my automatic thought would be, okay, so what am I doing wrong? Lord, what am I doing wrong? I would be like complaining a lot and be like, why? But to have the faith that he had and pursued and continue to pray through the valley and on the mountaintop. And I hear a lot of preachers say this, and it's such a hard concept to grasp, is thank him for the trials. Thank him for the struggles. Thank him for, allowing me to go through this. Thank you for allowing me to grow up without a dad. It's hard. It almost sounds sarcastic. Yeah, thanks for, not growing up with a father. It was real great, but thank him for everything no matter what, because without those situations, I don't think I would be where I am today. It's made who I am today. I don't know how I'm going to use that in the future. I believe it's going to be a testimony for someone else and help other people in the future. But all glory to God, because dang. Yeah.
And you've heard that question. If God's such a good God, why do bad things happen to good people?
Mm-hmm.
Read the book of Job. Yep. Job did nothing to deserve any of that. He wasn't in sin. He wasn't doing anything bad. And God allowed the devil to do all of that. One thing I want to mention is the devil was submitted to the voice of God more than we're submitted to the voice of God. The devil had to ask permission before he could attack God's people. And if God said no, he had to not do anything. But because he was obedient to the voice of God, and God, you know what? Test my child. The devil was submitted and listened to God. And I feel like we always look at this like, we still got to worship God through the bad times. But this is also a lesson on obedience. How are we going to let the devil be more submitted to the voice of God than we are? We always say, the devil's bad. I don't want to be like the devil. We always put down the devil, but the devil is more submitted to the voice of God than some Christians today.
Sometimes it's that's true. But sometimes it's hard to decipher, is that the Lord? Did he say that? So it's I don't know. That's just me sometimes. Although most of the times I know when it is the Lord. I just don't want to do it sometimes. That's what I pulled out. That is my relationship with the Lord this week. I've been studying this, and
Your
I thought
10 cents.
Yeah, my what?
Isn't that a saying? My 10 cents? Or my 50 cents?
I think it's called my 2 cents. My 2 cents.
It's not 10 cents?
No, I don't think it's 10 cents. It's 2 cents.
2 cents? Like pennies or 2 cents?
Like
senses?
That I don't know. But I think it's literally 2. Like the number 2, 1, 2 cents.
Cents, S-E-N-S-E? Or cents?
I don't know.
So it's not 10 cents?
No.
I've said that to someone, and they go, oh, yeah. Well,
that person doesn't know what they're talking about either, because it's 2 cents.
Well, that must be your 2 cents.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, yeah, this has been a nice, short little episode of Out of the Boat. Wow, that was actually pretty smooth. Look it up. I kid you not. I think it's 2 cents.
You made me look dumb now.
No.
I was thinking, I'm like, dang, I really said 10 cents. Wait, what do I look up? 2 cents?
Saying.
2 cents. Saying.
Put the mic up to your mouth.
For what?
Just in case I want to keep this.
Oh, someone's 2 cents. CENTS, like pennies. Someone's opinion about something,
There we
especially
go.
when it was not asked for or wanted. Oh,
So, man, you look like a moron saying more.
I said 10 cents. Wait, no. Let me look up 10 cents first.
Okay, 10 cents meaning.
What does 10 cents mean? A dime is worth 10 cents.
Oh, you don't say. That's what that means?